Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining the webinar today. Um, Today, we are looking at the 2025 standards and four of the biggest changes that we are going to be experiencing with the 2025 standards. Before we kick off with that, just a few housekeeping things, guys. The practical guide to the practice guides that is available for purchase at the moment, and what that is I took the ASQA practice guides and I've basically gone and expanded on that and provided a lot more context, a lot more background, a lot more input, and we've got the practical guide to the practice guides. And the reason why I did that is there was such feedback from the sector that although the ASQA practice guides were helpful to some degree, they weren't quite as helpful as RTOs would have liked them to have been. Now, as part of the ASQA stakeholder liaison group, the group spent a full day in Melbourne with ASQA in November last year. And we spent time with them workshopping what the practice guides could look like, the kind of information that would be good within the practice guides. And I am choosing my words with care. But unfortunately, what was published and what could have been published, obviously there was a difference. So as I said, huge call out from the sector that said, hey, we need some help with these ASCO practice guides. Well, guys, done it. It's the practical guide to the practice guides. We've also today we are also it's the last day. My apologies. The RTO, the 2025 RTO Standards Unpack course. Guys, today is the last day, I think, as of Monday, either tomorrow or Monday. The prices do increase. Out of my control, don't shoot the messenger. So if you haven't yet purchased your copy, please go and do so while it is still at the current price. So the 2025 RTO Standards Unpacked, very similar format to when I wrote the 2015 RTO Standards Unpacked. There's three modules. Module one has a look at all of the outcome standards as well as the compliance requirements, the credential policy, etc. It has a look at what the requirements are, and in module one, I've unpacked it into pure, simple English, having a look at how they should be applied within your RTO, etc. So it's a really good starting point. In module two, I've then taken it one step further and gone, okay, so these are the new requirements. How are we actually going to incorporate that into our RTO compliance systems? And then in module three, I've looked at some of the most general areas where RTOs often slip up and often have trouble rectifying it. And I've gone through what these are, what best practice is, how they can be rectified, and also just touching on the risks of non-compliance with each of those. So please go ahead. As I said, if you haven't yet bought your copy of the 25 RTO Standards Unpacked, do so today before the price goes up. There's also, the last line, the templates, checklists, etc. for early enrollments. I'm actually going to leave that up, and we're going to leave that until the end of the day, until the new prices kick in. How does that sound? Because I think as of Monday, it's early enrollments. Yeah, I'm not quite sure, but no doubt the marketing team will tell me if I've said something wrong, and they'll jump up and down and whiplash me. Guys, quick one for you. ARCP has a whole range of both accredited and non-accredited courses written specifically for RTO compliance, and everything has been contextualized to RTO compliance. So have a look at the courses that ARCP offers, because especially with the new workforce development and management requirement coming in, you are going to need to have a look at how and where and when you are going to help your staff upskill. Oh, housekeeping is going on. For those of you that we've got quite a lot of people on the webinar today, and guys, thank you for taking an hour out of your day to join me. I know that we are all really busy, especially this time of the year. And thank you for joining me. And I really hope that you're going to enjoy today as much as I'm enjoying being here with you. There's a whole lot of regulars here that know me. Hi, nice to see you guys. And there's also some new faces here. Guys, I'm not going to spend another 4 minutes talking about myself. If you really want to know more about me, feel absolutely free to go and stalk my LinkedIn. And yeah, you'll get my pedigree on there. But yeah, probably the best way to, if you're curious about who Alex Schroder is and why I do what I do and who I am in the sector, etc., and why I know the stuff that I do. Like I said, LinkedIn is a fabulous place to go and stalk me. A quick housekeeping, guys. I am going to make sure that there is time for Q&A today. However, if for any reason if I don't get around to answering your question, please email your question to info@aicp.edu.au. Similarly, if after the webinar, be it this afternoon, today, tonight, over the weekend, next week, next month, whatever, if there are any questions that pop up, please email your question to info@aicp.edu.au, and the AICP team will forward your questions on to me. I know that I've still got a couple of questions that I haven't quite responded to from last week. My apologies, things are a bit busy at the moment. I am getting to them today. But like I said, the guys will email those questions to me. What's really important though, please, if you do email any questions in, please add your mobile number, because sometimes it is just simply easier for me to pick up the phone and just have a quick chat with you rather than trying to answer your question by email. And look, often I do just send an email, but sometimes, like I said, it is just easier just picking up the phone. And if I don't have your mobile number, it just means that probably not going to get around to you, because as we all know, it's far easier just calling a mobile number than a 1300 number or a landline. Yeah, I've become lazy like the rest of us. But like I said, really important, if you're going to email questions through, I need your mobile number, please. Guys, future webinar topics, please go to arcp.edu.au/webinars, and you'll see the topics for the next 2 weeks. I think it's 2 weeks. What ARCP is doing is that they updating the webinar page to always show 2 webinars in advance. ASQA audits and regulatory activities. As with every webinar, we have a very quick look at what ASQA is doing. Guys, as I said last week and the week before, now that the federal elections are over and we know who our government is for the next few years, ASQA, like all other federal agencies, are no longer in caretaker mode. And what that means for us and what that means for the sector is ASQA is back on its normal auditing, or back and busy with its normal auditing activities. They are still looking very, very heavily at CRICOS providers. If you are a CRICOS provider, please make absolutely sure that you are ASQA ready. And if you haven't had your love letter from ASQA yet, please get in touch with your compliance consultant immediately, if you haven't already done so, and go and arrange for a full internal audit, because there are various things that ASQA are now looking at differently. So, like I said, the best way that you can protect yourself from a adverse regulatory audit finding, how's that for being very diplomatic, is get ASQA ready, get your compliance consultant out there, let them do a full internal audit for you, let them highlight exactly where your vulnerabilities may lie, and get on top of them now, so that when your ASQA audit does happen, and guys, I'm saying when, I'm not saying if, because it literally is a case of when, it's not if. So when your ASQA audit does happen, that you are 100% prepared for it, and you can go into the audit with confidence. But it's not only CRICOS providers that need to make sure that they are ASQA ready, because ASQA isn't only focusing on CRICOS providers, they're also doing the rounds with domestic providers. So regardless whether you are domestic CRICOS or otherwise, please, please, please make sure that you are audit ready and get your compliance consultant in to come and do a full audit for you so that you can be prepared. Your certificate of attendance will be issued within 48 hours of the webinar finishing. What you'll find is you'll get an email that says, thank you for attending today's topic. It comes from RTO PD and it comes from customer care at gotowebinar.com. You'll see in the email, there'll be a button here that says My Certificate. You need to click on there to go and download your certificate of attendance. The certificate of attendance and the button does have an expiration time. So please, by Monday, and look, they may even come through today. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not in that part of the operations. I'm just here, lucky enough to be chatting with you guys. Start having a look today, but definitely if you haven't seen your email by, I'd say let's make it start of business on Tuesday. Even no, let's even go late Monday afternoon. Have a look in your spam folders to see if it might have ended up there. But worst case scenario, if your certificate absolutely has not arrived, please email info@arcp.edu.au, and given that this is a paid webinar, the guys will arrange a replacement certificate for you. Whew, that's housekeeping done. I hope you guys are enjoying my beachy background. It is cold and wet and grey here in Brisbane today. I think we're sitting on about 16.9 degrees, which is freezing for Brisbane. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not in the mood for a cold, wet, grey, miserable day. So I'll have a beachy background and pretend I'm someplace by the water. So there, I hope you enjoy the background. Okay, guys, moving straight in. Today, we're looking at the RTO 25 standards and governance and things that have changed, and the biggest changes within the 25 standards that a lot of people aren't aware of. And I know there's a number of consultants that are doing webinars and doing conferences and all those things and workshops and master classes on the 2025 standards. And I know that we are all getting to the stage where we are pretty fatigued when it comes to 25 standards. I know I certainly am, and I'm quite sure that you guys are as well. So I didn't want to come to you with yet another, let's look at the 2025 standards and let's simply regurgitate what ASQA is saying and has published. Instead, listening to the sector, it's come to my attention that there's still a lot of misconceptions about the RTO standards, and there's a lot of nuances that people aren't actually picking up on. And I think where I am incredibly fortunate is because I do serve on the ASQA Stakeholder Liaison Group, and because I have been involved in consultations with ASQA and with DEWA and so many other parties and bodies, etc., about the 2025 standards. I'm fortunate that I actually understand the 25 standards a lot better than a lot of the other consultants that haven't been actively involved in it. And I guess also because I am a lawyer, I've been trained to be able to take the NVI Act, take the legislation and analyze it to get to what we really need to do. Because at the end of the day, the time is going to come when RTOs are going to start failing audit on the new standards, and in that case, I envisage there'll be a number of people that are of RTOs that are I'm going to try that again. In that case, I envisage there'll be a number of RTOs that are going to need to go to the tribunal to get a decision on the actions that ASQA may be wanting to take against the RTO. So given that when we get to tribunal stage, given that it then really becomes a legal fight, the my mindset is, well, if we can do it right in the first place, and if we can look at the NBR Act from the start, and if we can get that right, then it's going to cut out so much vulnerabilities when it comes to ASCO audits, because ASCO are still also working out 100% how they're going to be doing things, but things are going to get interesting. So let's have a look at governance and the whole concept of accountability and governance, and what your RTO needs to do when you implement the 2025 standards as of the 1st of July. There is a big focus on leadership moving forward. And we're talking about leadership from the top. We're talking about integrity, honesty, transparency, all those behaviors that all form part of good leadership, but unfortunately are not always that evident within an RTO's systems and processes and operations. Leadership moving forward also entails, ongoing learning and development. And it's all about what will set your RTO apart from other RTOs when it comes to your future. I've got here risk ratings. I know ASPE is a different word, but when it comes to how the risk rating of your RTO or your risk profile, so to speak. So it's all about really best practice versus minimum requirements. One of the things that I find really interesting about the 2025 RTO standards is that for the first time in, so long, almost forever, the sector no longer has very clear guidelines in what we are expected to do. You know, if you think back to the 2012 RTO standards, very prescriptive. If you think of the 2015 RTO standards, even more so. And now we get to 2025 standards. So we've had the 2012, the one before that, as well as the 2015 standards that were all very prescriptive. Suddenly we hit with the 2025 standards, and they, comparatively speaking, they're a lot more warm and fuzzy and open for interpretation. And what the whole mindset appears to have been from the very start is that the department and the minister and all the stakeholders that were involved in developing the new RTO standards wanted a regulatory structure where RTOs no longer had to follow prescribed requirements, but where RTOs are being given guidelines, and it's then up to the providers to work out how they're going to implement these guidelines to be able to truly be quality providers. Now, unfortunately, and look, I'm sort of sitting back and I'm going to be watching the space with interest, because I remember one day during one of the department stakeholder consultation sessions, I made this comment that I believe that the standards are so flexible and are not going to provide enough guidance that we're going to see a number of matters land up in the tribunal before both RTOs and our regulator has actually just found our feet completely. Yes, that went down like a lead balloon, but it's never stopped me before. So the one thing that I am painfully aware of is we're now moving into this era where RTOs have got flexibility on how they are going to meet the outcome standards, the compliance requirements, the credential policy, etc. ASCO's approach on this is, well, different RTOs are going to take different approaches depending on the size of the organization, the level of maturity, etc. The one thing that I can see happening is, with this flexibility that we are being given to go and work out ourselves how our operations are going to meet the various legislative and regulatory requirements, hand in hand with that is going to come needing or being able to justify at audit time why this operational decision, why your RTO believes that going down this direction is actually demonstrating that it is a quality provider. So imagine this. Imagine that you're sitting in an audit and the auditor says to you, why have you, so explain to me what you guys are doing vis-a-vis student well-being. And you explain what your RTO has put in place. If that doesn't make sense to the auditor, they're going to ask you how, when, what, where, why. So that is one thing that we absolutely need to be prepared for. Another big change, and guys, I'm going to go into flexibility a little bit further down the webinar. I'm just suddenly realizing that I'm not waffling, but I'm talking a lot on the intro slides. Obviously, a big change is student well-being and how RTOs are now required as of the 1st of July of having a more student well-being centric approach and being able to provide student well-being support in one way or the other to learners if and when they need it. Risk management is going to be a big thing in the new RTO standards, and as we'll see later on, there's levels of risk management, and there's areas of risk management that your senior or that your management team are going to have to become very, very au fait with. Workforce management, as we know, that's going to be a biggie, and that's one where I'm also expecting ASCO auditors to really be quizzing the RTO at audit time about what you're doing, why you're doing this, that, what prompted you to adapt that avenue, what the outcomes are, what the perception is, what the inception is within your RTO, all those things. And of course, there's also organizational culture, because one of the things that the 2025 RTO standards is about, in my opinion, by and large, is it's about a changed organizational culture approach. So I said just now that flexibility you're going to need, or with the flexibility of the 2025 standards, you're going to need a well-structured justification for your business and your operational decisions. So let's take an example for argument's sake. It's audit time, and your auditor says to you, hey, the approach that you've taken towards your workforce management and development requirement, what approach have you taken? Some RTOs are going to go, I've looked at the various job roles, I've looked at the capabilities of the people in those job roles, and we have decided to help our staff to undertake these and these and these accredited learning courses, or these and these non-accredited learning courses. And at that point in time, you need to be ready and prepared for your auditor to say, well, why did you choose them? How did you actually come to the decision that those would be the most appropriate learning avenues for your staff? What consideration was there? What consultation was there with your team members, etc.? So although we are given so much justification, so much flexibility that come audit time. No, actually, it's not only even audit time. It's just good business practice in general to, before we go and make decisions, especially big decisions, and before we go down avenues and implement change, it's actually just damn good business sense to sit down and plan it. Come up with a business plan and work out the why, the what, the where, the how, and obviously the benefits for it as well. Insofar as risk management, your RTO is going to have the internal capabilities to assess and manage and plan for and mitigate and all those things. Risks when it comes to your compliance risks, your finance risks, delivery approaches, and how our delivery structures and the way that we deliver our courses, train our learners, assess our courses, what the impact is on our learners. Because don't forget, there's a very good reason why learner wellness is in the 2025 RTO standards. As I said at the beginning, we are moving into an era where there is a real focus on learner well-being, and the well-being goes obviously mental, it goes physical, it goes psychological, the list is long. I'm not suggesting for any one moment that RTOs need to now go and employ their own counselors or their own psychologists or anything like that, because there are different ways to actually manage your student well-being services within the RTO. But remember, once again, we are entering an era where there's such a focus on well-being that is tied into your delivery approaches. And that is also something that, from a risk management perspective, you need to be looking at. And you also need to be mindful of how changes that you are making, because they need to be made so that you can comply with the new RTO standards, but how those changes, be they for the better, hopefully not for the worse, or just neutral, how they're going to impact everything within your organization. One of the big things that is also in the RTO standards, or and they're not actually explicit as we would expect it within the RTO standards, but there is some mention of it, but there's also definitely a very, very strong undercurrent of RTOs need to have a strong organizational culture. And I'm about to say something that's going to offend a lot of people, and I don't have a bulletproof vest, so be gentle, be kind, please hear me out. In so many different sectors, a good, strong, healthy organizational culture is almost a non-negotiable. In fact, I would say not almost, but that it is a non-negotiable. For some reason or the other, within the RTO sector, the whole idea of organizational culture hasn't quite anchored as much as it has in various other sectors. And I kind of understand how it hasn't, and I kind of don't. Now, to give you guys a bit of context, in a previous life, before I came into the vet sector, I used to manage international and domestic companies, but I've also always worked within organizational change, organizational architecture, and organizational culture, because I enjoy psychology and a few other things like law, etc. So organizational culture and looking at what a good, healthy organizational culture, the benefits of that to organization. I've never quite understood why within the RTO world, within the vet sector, we aren't as focused on having a good, healthy organizational culture as in other sectors. And the only thing I can put it down to is within the vet sector, we've got this big cauldron of various size RTOs. We've got the large RTOs, we've got the TAFEs, we've got the large private RTOs, we've got the international colleges, we've got the domestic colleges, we've got mum and pop operations, we've got online operations that don't require more than 2 or 3 people. We've got providers that provide training to apprentices. It's such a big mixture. And I think so often maybe, especially when we come to the smaller and even the mid-size RTOs, the focus on organizational culture isn't there, because let's be realistic. If you are a team of 5 within your RTO, how do you go and it's harder to go and establish and really implement and live a healthy or an organizational culture of any kind. It's much harder doing that than if you were in an organization with 100 people. And also, organizational culture and organizational change usually comes from HR. Big organizations, big RTOs have human resources departments. Smaller RTOs don't. And I think that's probably why there hasn't been such a focus on organizational culture across the entire sector up until now. But that is changing. So, given that that's a big change that's coming in, what we are going to need to do is we're going to have to be very aware that for those of us that are the small to medium sized providers that haven't been that focused on organizational culture up until now, it's going to be a changed mindset. One of the mindsets, or one of the things that I often find when I go into RTOs is, and especially the smaller and the medium-sized RTOs, as well as the cry cost providers, is it isn't cheap running an RTO anymore. You know, I remember yonks ago when I first came into the vet sector, owning an RTO was almost like owning your own money printing press. It was money for jam. It was like literally, it was so easy, making fabulous, fabulous profits. But that's also changed over the past 20 odd years. My gosh, I'm feeling old suddenly. But because the cost of now providing training and assessment services has increased, so often we find that once again, especially the smaller RTOs, the mom and pop operations, the mid-sized RTOs, and cry cost providers, we are so busy trying to chase the bucks, trying to make sure that we've got enough revenue being generated so we can actually stay in business and pay salaries and pay rent and all those things, that sometimes, and this isn't a blanket statement, but sometimes we forget that quality needs to come first, and quality in what we do and how we do it. It absolutely has to come first. And guys, I get it. You know, it's almost as if you've only got a certain amount of dollars coming in. You've got to go and stretch it this far. And what can you do to make it stretch as far as possible so that, once again, you can still run a business. However, we will always have the parts of our sector where integrity is more important than generating revenue. Sorry, other way around. Where integrity is not as important as generating revenue. Where delivering quality services is not as important as generating revenue. And the same with transparency and just simply doing the right thing. One of the things, I'm going to just digress a little bit. One of the things that where cry cost colleges specifically are busy coming undone is if you are an international provider, your international students pay a chunk of their tuition fees, if not all of it, in a lump sum. And that money needs to sit in a protected account where the RTO can only draw down from there as they have actually delivered services. Those protected accounts are non-interest bearing. ASQA has tweaked onto the fact that I think it started around about COVID when everybody was feeling the pinch. And this practice started happening where cry cost providers were drawing the money from the protected accounts, which don't earn interest, and putting it in an interest-bearing account, which, but on the face of it, makes a lot of sense, apart from the fact that it is against the ESOS Act. And the number of RTOs that have been slammed, sorry, cry cost providers that have been slammed because of that is absolutely gobsmacking. Now, I'm tying that into integrity and honesty because at the end of the day, there is a very good reason why cry cost providers are required to keep the money in a protected account. There's a very good reason why those protected accounts don't always or are not interest bearing. And for an operator to go and say, I know that that money there is sitting there. I know I can't touch it. I know that I'm not earning a single cent of interest. And I know that the money isn't mine. It still belongs to my students until I've actually delivered the services. But you know what? Bugger that. I'll just go and move the money from there where if anything happens, if the wheels come off, it is accessible to the students or to the regulator, then to the students. I'll go and move that into a different account. That A is going to earn me some money. And you know what? If the wheels come unstuck, well, good luck in them finding it. So when it comes to integrity, and that's also why I'm tying it into an organizational culture. Within an RTO that has a strong organizational culture, your management, your RTO operators are not going to, thoughts like that might cross their mind and they'll go, that's not the way that this RTO runs. And that is the thing about organizational culture. It's all sitting down and deciding what your RTO business, what it's going to look like behind the scenes. Once we draw the curtain, once we open the curtains, what is actually happening in the back end? Are we an RTO that on the back end, as well as for public, I suppose, perception, that we are a strong RTO, we run a good RTO, we run a good business, we run a good, honest business, and our leaders lead our organization with integrity. That is what we're really looking for or what we need to look at when it comes to organizational culture. I'm busy running out of time, so I'm not going to go through all of these. But guys, the one thing I do want to just stress is remember also that your organizational culture is all about leading from the front. So as an RTO operator, as an RTO manager, your senior management team, they need to always lead by or manage by example, because we can't expect our staff, our team members, and ultimately our learners to go and do the right thing if we aren't doing the right thing ourselves. Workforce capabilities, that's another new one that's hitting us. So with workforce capabilities, and guys, I have touched on this in previous webinars, but I'm going to go over it again because it is essential for us to work out how we are going to, I want to say, embrace the requirement of workforce capabilities. And I want to say embrace because we've got one of two choices. We can either go, yep, you know what? The whole idea of workforce capabilities is fantastic. And oh my gosh, I've been doing it for absolute years. So it's an automatic roll on for my RTO. Or there'll be providers that are going to go, I love the idea of workforce capabilities. I hadn't actually quite given it enough thought up until now, but thank goodness, it's now sort of jarred my thinking process. In the first two instances, it will be an embrace of the new requirement, but there'll also be RTOs that are going to go, ugh, do I really have to? And if there's anybody out there who's going, ugh, do I really have to? My best suggestion to you is have a look at the absolute benefits that there are for your RTO when you have a workforce that are absolutely, where every single person within your team have got the capabilities and the skills and the knowledge that they need to be able to do their jobs not only really, really well, but also compliantly. I'm sorry, I'm going to just cough for a second. Please bear with me. Oh, I do apologize for that. So yeah, just imagine the absolute difference it can make within your operations, within your organization, when you have got people are in, or people have the capacity and the capabilities and the skills and the knowledge for the job roles that they are in. Now, with workforce capabilities also comes ongoing development from the top down. So just because you are the RTO owner, the RTO operator, um, the PEO, um, the high managerial agent, insert senior job role title that you want, just because you are in a senior role, it does not mean that you do not still need to be focused on your career or your ongoing development as well as that of your team members. Because once again, remember, we need to lead from the front, but also just because you're the person that owns the business, or just because you are one of the senior team members, it doesn't mean that you actually know everything that you need to know. So from that aspect, having now having to plan our the professional development for all of our team members. Don't forget that includes our senior team, our senior management team as well. Workforce capabilities is all about career planning and career progression. And one of the things that I'm excited about this is that it's going to require RTOs to actually, as part of their business planning in general, to sit down and go, okay, this is where we are today. This is where the business is going to be in 12 months' time, 18 months' time, 24 months' time. What do we need to do today to make sure that as we scale our businesses and as our businesses grow, that we are going to have the workforce capability that we are going to need at the time, instead of being caught, I want to say with our pants down, it sounds a little bit rude, but caught unawares. Part of the workforce capabilities and part of the cultural mindset behind it is we need to have a internal learning culture. Do you know, it always amazes me that as RTOs, we are here to prepare learners to be job ready, to be able to go out there in industry and be able to be an asset to their employers, because we have given them, or we've taught them, the skills and the knowledge that they need to go out there and be able to be employable. And once again, like I said, really be able to make a contribution in one way or the other to the employer's company. But we very, very seldom focus on the internal learning or on the learning needs of our own staff. And that is also one of the reasons why, back in 2016, 2017-ish, 2015, I remember that I went into an audit one day. I was living in Sydney and I was in Brisbane doing an audit for an RTO here. And they had so many compliance issues. And what I've always done, and my team, we do the same, is when we find non-compliances, and especially if they are systemic, or especially if they are really big non-compliances, we've always sat down with the compliance practitioners and we've said, why? And we've tried to understand, or we haven't said to them why, but we've tried to understand why the RTO has gotten itself in the position where they have that many operational issues and that many compliance issues. And so often people would say, well, I don't really have much compliance experience. I used to be a trainer and assessor, and our compliance manager left, and the RTO owner said, hey, you should be able to manage our compliance. So do you want the job? And the one day I was at this Brisbane audit, and I heard exactly the same story again. And as a compliance practitioner, and I can be a bit of a what's the word, a bit of a perfectionist sometimes. But as a compliance practitioner, I remember I just kind of went internally, oh, not again. Does the story not change that much? And that is when I went to my hotel room that night, and I thought to myself, you know what? We have nothing within the RTO sector that teaches people how to run an RTO's compliance properly and how to keep the RTO compliant. And because we don't have any of that kind of learning, that is why so many RTOs are failing audit. And that's what prompted me to go and write the certificate for an RTO compliance and the diploma of RTO compliance management, because it suddenly dawned on me that it's not good enough for us to be providing training and education to other people. We need to be providing it to ourselves as well. So, guys, I know I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, and please forgive me, but I go back to it is so important within your RTO to really and truly have an internal learning culture that applies to individuals as well as to teams as well. Because here's the thing, that if your team members, if the individual team members as well as the teams as a whole, if they are skilled, if they are well versed in what they do, if they are educated, they're going to do their jobs properly. No, I'm going to rephrase it. They're going to do their jobs better than if they were not. And when you have your staff do their jobs better, better is one of the first steps to an organization that is capable, that is able to scale, that has less issues, that runs smoother, but that it's also one step closer to being a quality provider. Because remember, that is what the 2025 standards are trying to achieve, is for RTOs, all of us, to be quality providers. Looking at time, I'm sorry, I'm getting there. Leadership capability. So, guys, your capability or your workforce capability isn't only for your team members, it is absolutely also for your leadership teams. Leadership teams, be it your high managerial agent, your RTO owner, your CEO, your PO, insert job title, but the learning capabilities go from the top right down, or it goes from the top right up. Depends how you want to spin it. The point that I'm trying to make is that our senior management is not or must not be forgotten, must not be excluded or excused from needing to undergo development as well, ongoing development, needing to undertake professional development, needing to either do formal learning or informal learning, because that is what shapes a really well-rounded and well-staffed and an RTO that is staffed with capable people that are good for their roles, that actually know how to do the job that they've been employed to do. So from a leadership capability point of view, we are looking at definitely your leadership team needs between them, they need to have financial acumen, because remember that you've now got a risk management requirement that's coming in on the 1st of July. And remember, we said earlier on that risk management includes financial risks as well. Your leadership team need to have enough skills and capabilities to be able to identify risks, plan for the risks, manage the risks when they come in, be ready for risk mitigation. There's a whole umbrella or risk management is a whole umbrella with lots of little tentacles hanging from it that is all involved in management. As I said, it's the identification, it's the planning for it, it's having your backup plan, it's being ready to, if the proverbial does hit the fan, of being able to deal with that while it is still business as usual as well. Leadership, ongoing professional development, you need to be able to have capabilities within your business operations, RTO operations, vet practices, your legislation, your RTO standards, all of those things that are components of being able to run a really healthy, mature business, or growing towards a mature business, but also being able to run a successful business. Those are all things that your leadership team would be well versed in looking at when they do their planning as well. I did say we were going to have time for Q&A, so let's go and see what questions we have got. I just need to go to a different screen. Just bear with me for 1 second. There we go. All right, so I've got a question here from Mary. Mary, hi, lovely to see you again. Mary, you want to know when it comes to being able to provide professional development for staff, who should be responsible for the cost thereof? Good question. In the ideal world, it would probably, I'd probably say, or at least I know that with Invet Prep, so the consultancy that I run, we actually fund the professional development of all of our team members, but that is a business decision that we've made. And the reason why we've made that business decision is we require our staff to undergo professional development, to be continuously improving their own capabilities and their own knowledge and skills. And because of that, because to us, we're going to pay for it, so that there's no excuse or no reason why our team members don't do it. Instead of saying to a team member, you know, go and do it, and they go, but I can't afford it right now. What do we do in a situation like that? However, that is a decision that each RTO needs to take for itself. I guess for me as a business owner, and like I said, I've been running businesses for far too many years. As a business owner, I look at what is more important. For me, it is really important to have staff that are happy, that know what they're doing, that are capable, that can do their jobs with their eyes closed. And if that means that that I need to have a professional development budget for it, and I do, so be it, because also the money that I spend on my staff's professional development is obviously a tax deduction as well. Jason, you've does provided suggestions of free training qualify for training staff? No. So, Jason, the way that I'm reading your question, and please correct me, is I think you are asking, hey, if you simply say to your staff, here is a list of 10 places where you can go and get free training, does that count towards providing your staff with learning opportunities? Jason, have I interpreted your question correctly? Just quickly drop me a yes or a no. Okay, so you've come back yes. Jason, no. Saying to people, hey, you know what? You've got the option of doing this doesn't mean they're going to go and do it. It's like if I said to you, hey, if you're hungry, there's a KFC up the road. You can go get yourself some deep fried chicken. It doesn't mean that you're going to. In your mind, you might go, oh my gosh, Alex, you're mad. I hate KFC. And if KFC is my option, I'm not going to go there. So it's a case of if your RTO is not going to have a professional development budget, that you can then go and make training available to your staff. And trust me, it's one of the things that you're going to want to do. Your RTO is going to want to have a look at professional development budgets that are going to be realistic for the number of staff that you have, because although it isn't explicit within the RTO standards, it is going to be an expectation. But anyway, so if you do want to do something like if your RTO doesn't have a professional development budget and free training is the best way to go, then maybe what you do is you might go and let's say one of my compliance webinars, you may say, okay, you know what? Alex is running a compliance webinar this week. It's free of charge. It's on trainer and assessor or training and assessment methodologies. And I am going to make sure that all of my trainers and assessors and my compliance team members that are involved in overseeing trainers and assessors and my training manager, that they are all going to be in the room together so that they can all undergo or watch this webinar and learn from this webinar. So therefore, it is it still meets the requirement of not paying for it, but you can also show that you haven't only suggested to your team members that they're actually going to do it, you've said to them, this is what we're doing this week. Jason, you've just followed up your question by, so would it be a better process of requiring them to attend and then perhaps moving towards a structured conversation? Jason, how your RTO chooses to implement this is completely up to you. But, and guys, I'm just going to read out the rest of Jason's question. He asked, so would it be a better process of requiring them to attend the webinar and then perhaps moving towards a structured conversation about the training outcomes in a subsequent trainers meeting? You could do that, but I'd also suggest to you that if you had them attend said webinar and they've actually got their certificates of attendance. You've got enough documentary evidence of them attending one professional development activity. If you then want to follow that up with a discussion in your meeting, I think it would be a really good idea. But it certainly wouldn't be a requirement. Does that help? I hope so. Thank you. Annie, you've asked if you could please have more information on the RTO standards Unpacked. Annie, the best that I can suggest, or the quickest, the easiest, given the time, is if you go to ircp.edu.au, you will see that they've got info on the RTO standards Unpacked, and they'll probably be able to give you far more or far better quality of information than I'm able to provide before the webinar ends in 4 minutes' time. Suki, you've asked if we enroll our compliance team members in either the Cert 4 RTO compliance or the compliance management course, will that count towards workforce development? Absolutely. Absolutely will, because by enrolling them in either the Cert 4 and RTO compliance or the Diploma of RTO compliance management, you are, or even there's also the double diploma of RTO compliance management and quality auditing. What you are then able to demonstrate is that you have you've actively made available the option for them to go and undertake formal learning that is directly related to their job role. And guys, just on that note, I know I've had a number of people come and say, "Hey, am I going to be developing non-accredited courses for other job roles within RTOs?" The short answer is absolutely. As to timelines, I'm not 100% sure, but it will be in the very, very near future. So yes, I'm absolutely going to be helping the sector in preparing for that as well, because yeah, it's a bit of a minefield what we're about to enter vis-a-vis workforce development and a lot of other things under the 2025 RTO standards. Justine, ooh, good one. You said, hey, ARCP has always had the foundations of RTO compliance managed. Sorry, I'm reading it wrong. Hey, ARCP has always had the foundations of RTO compliance. Do they still offer the course? They absolutely do. And I don't know where you heard about it, Justine, but yeah, it's a great course. I wrote that specifically for people that are brand spanking new to the RTO sector, and just to give them an idea of who's who in the zoo and what we do, or why we do what we do and how we do what we do. And it's just a really great way to take a brand new entrant from being, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on, to just getting a feel. Because at the end of the day, we're a funny little sector. We speak our own language. We don't speak in words mostly. We speak in acronyms. There's ASQA, there's a VECMAS, there's NCVR, there's TGA. There are, TNAs, there's TASs. It's like, wow. So, yes, what the foundations of RTO compliance does is it actually gives people that have never worked in the vet sector before, or people that are new within the vet sector, it's just a really good way for them to start understanding what we do. And there's actually a number of RTOs. Just, did you used to work for an RTO that uses foundations of RTO compliance as part of their onboarding? I thought so. Sorry, guys. I can see Justine's answers where you guys can't. Um, it is 1 o'clock. I have absolutely promised everybody that I will finish at 1 o'clock, and I've also got a meeting to slip into at 1:15. So, guys, once again, if I didn't, there's a few questions that I have not been able to get to, and I'm so sorry. I really apologize. But do me a favor. Please flick your questions through to almost there. Flick your questions through to info@arcp.edu.au, and I will absolutely answer them with such pleasure. And just something that Jason said, Jason, there are other RTOs like yourself as well that do need to navigate the workforce management and capability requirements on a low budget. I might do a poll on LinkedIn and see if it's going to be of use to or useful to enough RTOs for me to go and develop a webinar on ideas for navigating the workforce requirements on a lower budget. So keep an eye out for that. I'll get the guys to put a poll on within the next probably sometime next week. And once again, if there's enough people that go, yep, you know what, Alex, talk to us, please give us ideas or share your thoughts about how we can navigate workforce management with a lower budget, I'd be more than happy to go and do it for you guys. Have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful Friday. Have a brilliant weekend. Once again, thank you for joining me. I know we are all very busy, and I'm just really thankful that you've taken this hour out of your day to come and spend it with me. And yeah, like I said, have a brilliant weekend. I hope you guys all rest well, and I'll see you on the next webinar. Bye.